The girl with burn scars across half her face stepped into the coffee shop, and the room went silent. Parents turned their children away. Others whispered behind raised phones. She stood frozen near the door, trembling, ready to disappear back into the safety of shadows. Then a man in grease-stained work clothes stood up. He walked straight toward her while everyone watched. He reached for her shaking hand and held it. The entire shop held its breath. Why would someone like him treat her like that? Like she mattered, like she was still human. Elijah Eli Hayes, a black single dad in his 30s, smelled like motor oil and exhaustion. He had been awake since 4 o'clock in the morning, unloading shipments at the warehouse before his shift at the garage started at 8. His warm brown hands were stained black no matter how hard he scrubbed. The wedding ring he used to wear left a pale band of skin on his finger, but the ring itself was gone. Sold 2 years ago when the rent came due, and his ex-wife Aisha stopped answering his calls about helping with their daughter. Amara was 6 years old. She had his tight dark coils and her mother's green eyes, and she did not understand why Mommy lived in a big house across town with a new husband while they lived in a one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a refrigerator that hummed too loud at night. Eli did not have the words to explain it to her. His ex-wife had left because he could not give her the life she wanted. She told him that on her way out. She said she was tired of being poor, tired of waiting for him to be more than a mechanic with grease under his nails. She took nothing but her clothes and her disappointment. Now she sent $50 a month when she remembered. It was never enough. Eli worked 2 jobs and still bought Amara's shoes a size too big so they would last longer. On Saturday morning, he took her to the mall because she had been good all week, and he wanted her to have something normal, something other kids had. They walked through the bright stores with their glowing displays, and Amara pressed her face against the glass of a toy shop, her breath fogging the window. "Can we go inside, Daddy?" she asked. Eli looked at the price tags and felt the weight of his empty wallet, but he nodded. "Just for a little while." She ran ahead, weaving between the aisles, and he followed, keeping her in sight. The store was crowded. Families moved in clusters, their arms full of bags. Eli stayed close to the entrance, watching Amara examine a stuffed rabbit with floppy ears. Then she turned a corner, and he lost sight of her. He called her name once, twice. His voice rose with each repetition. He pushed through the aisles, scanning the rows of toys, the checkout lines, the front doors. His chest tightened. He could not breathe. Amara. She was not there. He ran into the corridor outside the store, his boots skidding on the polished floor. The mall stretched in both directions, endless and gleaming. People passed without looking at him. He shouted her name again, louder this time, and a few heads turned, but no one stopped. Then he heard it, a small voice crying. He sprinted toward the sound, rounding the corner near the food court, and there she was. Amara stood by a bench, tears streaming down her face, her hands clutching the hem of her dress, and next to her, kneeling at eye level, was a woman in a dark hoodie and a medical mask that covered half her face. The woman was speaking softly, her hand resting gently on Amara's shoulder. Eli could not hear the words, but his daughter had stopped crying. He slowed as he approached, his heart still hammering. The woman looked up at him, and for a moment their eyes met. Hers were gray, tired, weary. "Daddy!" Amara broke away and ran into his arms. He caught her, lifting her off the ground, pressing his face into her coiled hair. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "I'm so sorry, baby." The woman in the hoodie stood slowly. She took a step back, her hands disappearing into her pockets. "She was looking for you," the woman said quietly. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, like she wasn't used to speaking to strangers. Eli set Amara down, but kept his hand on her shoulder. He looked at the woman again. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if it's okay," the woman interrupted. She glanced around the crowded food court, her shoulders tense. "She's safe. That's what matters." Amara tugged on Eli's sleeve. "Daddy," her mask fell. Eli frowned. He looked at the woman more closely. The hoodie was pulled low over her forehead, and the mask covered her nose and mouth. But there was something deliberate about the way she angled her face away from the light. It slipped a little. Amara continued, her voice innocent and matter-of-fact. She has some boo-boos, but she said it's okay. She said everybody has boo-boos. The woman's hand moved to her mask, adjusting it slightly. Her fingers trembled. Eli realized what his daughter meant. He saw the edge of scarred skin along the woman's jawline, the puckered texture that disappeared beneath the fabric, burned scars, recent enough that the skin still looked raw in places. He did not flinch. He did not look away. "Thank you," he said again, and this time he meant it with everything he had. "Really, thank you." The woman nodded once, then turned to leave. "Wait," Eli called after her. She stopped, but did not turn around. Amara pulled on his hand. "Daddy, can we get her hot chocolate, please? She was really nice to me." Eli looked down at his daughter, then back at the woman. She was still standing there frozen, like she was waiting for something, but did not know what. "Would you let me buy you a coffee?" Eli asked. "Or hot chocolate, whatever you want. It's the least I can do." The woman turned slowly. Her eyes were visible above the mask, and they were filled with something Eli recognized. Fear, not of him, of everything else, of the people walking past, of being seen. "You don't have to," she said. "I know," Eli replied, "but I'd like to." Amara beamed. "Please, just for a little bit." The woman looked at the little girl, and something in her expression softened. She glanced at the food court, then at Eli, then back at Amara. "Okay," she said finally, "just for a little bit." They sat at a corner table away from the main flow of traffic. Eli bought 2 hot chocolates and a black coffee for himself. Amara swung her legs under the table, clutching her cup with both hands. The woman sat across from them, her hoodie still up, her mask still in place. "I'm Eli," he said. "This is Amara." The woman hesitated. "Lissa?" "Nice to meet you, Lissa." She did not respond. She just stared at the cup in front of her, like she had forgotten what to do with it. Amara leaned forward. "Do you live near here?" Lissa shook her head. "Not really." "Do you come to the mall a lot?" Another shake. "No, not usually." Eli could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands stayed hidden in her sleeves. She was here, but barely, like she was ready to bolt at any second. "Amara," he said gently, "maybe let Miss Lissa have a minute?" "Okay." His daughter nodded and took a loud sip of her hot chocolate, leaving a whipped cream mustache on her upper lip. Lissa's eyes flicked to her, and for the first time Eli saw the ghost of a smile behind the mask. "She's sweet," Lissa said quietly. "She is," Eli agreed. "Too sweet sometimes. She doesn't understand why people can be mean." Lissa looked at him, then really looked at him, and Eli saw the weight she carried. It was in the way she held herself, the way she kept her face angled down, the way she flinched when someone walked too close to their table. "People stare," she said. It was not a question. "Yeah," Eli said, "they do." She looked away. "I shouldn't have come out today. I don't know why I thought it would be different." Eli leaned forward, his voice low. "My daughter was lost and scared, and you stopped to help her. That's not nothing. That's everything." Lissa met his eyes again. Hers were wet. "You didn't look at me like I was a monster," she said, her voice breaking. "Your daughter didn't scream." Eli felt something crack open in his chest. "You're not a monster. You don't know that." "Yeah," he said. "I do." Amara reached across the table and patted Lissa's hand. "You're really nice. I like you." Lissa stared at the small hand on hers. She did not pull away. They sat there for 20 minutes. Eli did not ask her about the scars. He did not ask her where she came from or why she was alone. He just talked about small things, about Amara's school, about the garage where he worked, about nothing and everything. And Lissa listened. She sipped her hot chocolate. She answered Amara's questions with short, careful words. She did not relax, but she didn't run either. When they finally stood to leave, Amara hugged Lissa's leg. "Can we see you again?" she asked. Lissa looked at Eli, her eyes wide with something like panic. "Only if you want to," Eli said quickly. "No pressure." Lissa pulled her hoodie tighter. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" Amara asked. Lissa knelt down so she was eye level with the little girl. "Because sometimes people like me are better off alone." "That's silly," Amara said. "Nobody should be alone." Lissa's eyes filled with tears. She stood quickly and walked away before either of them could say anything else. Eli watched her go, disappearing into the crowd. He felt like he had just witnessed something fragile and important, and he did not know if he would ever see it again. Amara tugged his hand. "Daddy, she was sad." "Yeah, baby," Eli said. "She was." "Can we make her not sad?" Eli looked down at his daughter, at her wide green eyes and her hopeful face, and he did not have the heart to tell her that some sadness was too big to fix. "Maybe," he said instead, "maybe we can try." Lissa did not sleep that night. She sat in her bedroom in the east wing of her father's estate, staring at the reflection she had learned to avoid. The mirror showed her what the world saw. Half her face was untouched, still carrying the bone structure that had once landed her on magazine covers when she was 19. The other half was a landscape of scar tissue, pink and white and purple, stretching from her temple to her jaw. 3 years ago, she had been in the passenger seat when her stepmother swerved to avoid a child running into the street. The car hit a light pole. The engine caught fire. Her stepmother died on impact. Lissa survived with third-degree burns across 40% of her body. She had not left the estate in 2 years, not until today. The little girl's face kept appearing in her mind. Amara, the way she had looked at the scars without flinching. The way she had said, "Everybody has boo-boos," like it was the simplest truth in the world. And the father, Eli, the man in the grease-stained shirt, who had looked at her like she was a person, not a tragedy. Lissa touched the edge of her scars, tracing the uneven texture. She had spent 3 years believing she was unlovable, unwatchable, better off hidden. But for 20 minutes in that food court, she had felt almost normal. She wanted that again. The thought terrified her. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from her father's assistant. "Breakfast at 8. Your father wants to see you." Lissa closed her eyes. Clinton Harrington did not summon her unless something was wrong. She was right. When she entered the dining room the next morning, her father was already seated at the head of the table, a tablet in front of him. He did not look up when she sat down. "Good morning," she said quietly. Clinton tapped the screen once, then turned it toward her. On the display was a grainy photograph taken from a distance. It showed Lissa sitting at a table in the mall food court. Across from her sat a man in a work shirt and a little girl with dark hair. Lissa's stomach dropped. "Who is he?" Clinton asked. His voice was calm, controlled. That made it worse. "A stranger," Lissa said. "His daughter was lost. I helped her find him." "And then you sat with them for 23 minutes. Lissa stared at the photo. Someone had been watching her. Someone always was. "He offered to buy me coffee," she said. I said yes. Clinton set the tablet down. He was 62, silver-haired and cold in the way only men with too much money could be. He had built an empire in commercial real estate, and he ran his family the same way he ran his business, with absolute control. "His name is Elijah Hayes," Clinton said. 36 years old, works 2 jobs, divorced, lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in Crenshaw Heights. He makes $23,000 a year before taxes. Eli's low wages, given his status as a black man in a high-cost city, was likely an extra sting to Clinton. Lissa felt her face flush. "You had him investigated." "Of course I did. You left this house for the first time in 2 years and sat with a stranger. I needed to know who he was." "He was kind to me," Lissa said, her voice shaking. "That's all." Clinton leaned back in his chair. "Kindness is cheap. People are kind when they want something." "He didn't want anything. He just said thank you." "Men like him always want something," Clinton said, "especially from women like you." Lissa flinched. "Women like me. You know what I mean?" She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You mean damaged? You mean broken? You mean no one would want me unless they were after my money?" Clinton's expression did not change. "I mean vulnerable." Lissa turned and walked out before he could see her cry. She stayed in her room for 2 days. She did not answer her father's calls or her therapist's emails. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and tried to convince herself that Clinton was right, that Eli had only been kind because he pitied her, that she was a fool for thinking it could be anything else. But she could not stop thinking about the way he had looked at her, not with pity, not with disgust, just with warmth. On the 3rd day, she made a decision. She left the estate at dusk, wearing a hoodie and a mask and sunglasses, even though the sun had already set. She took a cab to Crenshaw Heights and gave the driver an address she had found in the background. Report her father's investigator had left on the dining room table. The apartment building was old and worn, with flickering hallway lights and stairs that creaked under her weight. She found his door on the second floor, number 12. She knocked before she could change her mind. The door opened and Eli stood there in a faded t-shirt and jeans, a dish towel slung over his shoulder. His tight curls were slightly damp from a late shower. Behind him, Lissa could see a small living room with a couch that doubled as a bed and a kitchen table covered in crayons and coloring books. He stared at her, his eyes wide. "Lissa," she pulled down her mask. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have come. I just—" "No," Eli said quickly. "No, it's okay. Come in." She hesitated, then stepped inside. The apartment was cramped and cluttered, but it was clean. Amara sat at the table, coloring a picture of a butterfly. She looked up and her face broke into a grin. "Miss Lissa." Lissa felt something tight in her chest loosen. "Hi, Amara." The little girl hopped off her chair and ran over, wrapping her arms around Lissa's waist. Lissa stood frozen for a moment, then slowly rested her hand on Amara's head. Eli closed the door. "I didn't think I'd see you again." "I didn't think I'd come," Lissa admitted. She looked around the small space at the peeling paint and the radiator that clanked in the corner. "I wanted to say thank you for the other day, for not treating me like—" "Like what?" Eli asked gently. "Like a ghost." He nodded slowly. "You're not a ghost." Amara tugged on Lissa's hand. "Do you want to color with me?" Lissa looked at Eli. He smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made her believe just for a moment that she could be normal again. "Yeah," she said. "I'd like that." They sat at the table, and Amara pushed a box of crayons toward her. Lissa picked up a blue one and started coloring the sky in Amara's drawing. Eli made tea in the kitchen, the kettle, whistling softly. "Do you have a job?" Amara asked, her voice curious and guileless. "Amara," Eli said from the kitchen, "that's not polite." "It's okay," Lissa said. She set down the crayon. I used to do a lot of things, but I stopped after my accident." "What kind of accident?" Amara asked. Lissa touched the edge of her scars. "A car accident. It hurt me pretty badly." Amara looked at her seriously. "Does it still hurt?" "Sometimes," Lissa said. "Not the scars, but other things." "Like your heart?" Lissa felt her throat tighten. "Yeah, like my heart." Amara reached over and patted her hand. "My mommy left us. That hurt Daddy's heart. But he says it's okay to be sad sometimes." Eli set 2 mugs of tea on the table. "Amara, why don't you go get ready for bed?" "But I'm not tired," she protested. "Bed," Eli said firmly, but his tone was kind. Amara sighed dramatically, then hugged Lissa goodnight before disappearing into the bedroom. Eli sat down across from Lissa. "Sorry, she doesn't have a filter." "I like that about her," Lissa said. She wrapped her hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. "She's honest. Too honest sometimes." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping against the window. "Why did you really come here?" Eli asked. Lissa stared into her tea. "Because I've spent 3 years hiding, and I'm tired of it. I wanted to see if I could be around people again, around someone who didn't look at me like I was broken." "You're not broken," Eli said. "You don't know that." "Yeah," he said. "I do." She looked up at him, and for a moment the space between them felt impossibly small. He was close enough that she could see the faint scar above his eyebrow, the tired lines around his eyes. She thought for a moment how rarely a black man in his position was afforded any space to be merely tired, and yet here he was, offering her a lifeline. The way he looked at her like she mattered. She leaned forward without thinking. He did the same. Their faces were inches apart when a flash of light exploded outside the window. They both jerked back. Eli stood and walked to the window, pulling the curtain aside. Below, on the street, a man with a camera was climbing into a car. "Damn it," Eli muttered. Lissa felt ice flood her veins. "No, no, no, no," she stood, her hands shaking. "I have to go. I'm sorry. I have to—" "Lissa, wait," Eli said. But she was already at the door. She ran down the stairs and out into the rain, pulling her hood up. But it was too late. The damage was done. By morning, the photo was everywhere. It showed Lissa and Eli through the window of his apartment, their faces close, their bodies leaning toward each other. The headline read, "Scarred Heiress and a Broke Mechanic, a Love Story or a Con." The article was worse. It called Eli a gold digger. It called Lissa desperate. It speculated about how much money he stood to gain if he could manipulate the reclusive daughter of Clinton Harrington. Lissa's phone rang 30 times in the first hour. She did not answer. She sat in her room and watched the story spread across every tabloid, every gossip site, every social media platform. Her father appeared in her doorway at noon. "Pack your things," he said. "What? You're coming back to the main house. No more guest wing, no more going out. This ends now." "You can't do that," Lissa said. "Watch me." Clinton stepped into the room. "I told you that man wanted something. Now the whole world thinks you're a fool." "He didn't do this," Lissa said, her voice rising. "Someone followed me. Someone took that photo." "And whose fault is that?" Clinton snapped. "You left the safety of this house to sit in some filthy apartment with a man who makes minimum wage. What did you think would happen?" "I thought I could have a life." "You don't get to have a life," Clinton shouted, and the room went silent. He took a breath, his face hard. "You don't get to have a normal life, Lissa. Not anymore. The world is cruel. People are cruel. And I will not stand by and watch you destroy yourself because you're lonely." Lissa felt tears streaming down her face. "So, I'm just supposed to stay here forever, locked away like I'm something shameful. I'm protecting you." "You're suffocating me." Clinton turned and walked to the door. "You have 1 hour. Pack your things or I'll have someone do it for you." He left and Lissa collapsed onto the bed, sobbing into her hands. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone was watching. Please don't blame yourself, Eli." She stared at the message until her vision blurred. The next 3 days were hell. The media frenzy did not die down. It grew. Reporters camped outside the estate gates. Eli's garage was swarmed. Someone posted his address online and strangers showed up at his apartment, shouting questions, taking photos. Lissa tried to call him, but his number was disconnected. She tried to leave the estate, but her father had stationed security at every exit. She was a prisoner. On the 4th day, Clinton walked into her room with a folder. "I'm filing a restraining order," he said, "against Elijah Hayes. He's not to contact you, approach you, or come within 500 feet of you or this property." Lissa stood, her fists clenched. "You can't do that. He didn't do anything wrong. He exposed you to the media. He put you in danger." "I went to him. I made that choice." Clinton set the folder on her desk. "You're not thinking clearly. You haven't been since the accident." "Don't," Lissa said, her voice shaking. "Don't use the accident as an excuse to control me. I'm using the accident as a reason to protect you. I don't need protection. I need to live." Clinton looked at her for a long moment. "If you contact him again, I will have his parental rights challenged. I will make sure he loses custody of his daughter." The threat hung heavier, knowing the systemic disadvantages a working black father might face in a custody battle against a wealthy, powerful man. Lissa felt the floor drop out from under her. "You wouldn't." "Try me." He walked out and Lissa sank to the floor, her body shaking with silent sobs. She thought about Amara's face, her bright smile, the way she had hugged Lissa like she was someone worth loving. She could not be the reason that little girl lost her father. She picked up her phone and typed a message to Eli's disconnected number, knowing he would never see it. "I'm sorry, I can't do this. Please don't try to find me." She deleted his contact. She blocked the number. She erased every trace of him from her phone, and then she turned it off and threw it across the room. For 3 years, she had believed the accident was her fault. Her stepmother had died because Lissa had asked her to drive into the city that day, because Lissa had wanted to go shopping, because Lissa had been too selfish to stay home. She had carried that guilt every day since. It was a weight that crushed her, suffocated her, made her believe she deserved every cruel word, every pitying glance, every moment of loneliness. And now she had ruined Eli's life too. She curled up on the floor and let the darkness take her. Downstairs, Clinton Harrington sat in his office, staring at the restraining order he had not yet filed. He had built an empire by being ruthless, by eliminating threats before they could grow. But his daughter was not an empire. She was a person who had not smiled in 3 years until she met a man in a greased shirt. He picked up his phone and called his head of security. "Find out everything you can about Elijah Hayes," he said. "I want to know if he's a threat." "And if he's not?" the man asked. Clinton looked at the photograph on his desk. It showed Lissa at 18 before the accident, smiling at the camera with her whole face. "Then I need to know that too," he said quietly, and hung up. In his apartment across town, Eli sat at the kitchen table, staring at the eviction notice in his hands. His landlord had terminated his lease, effective immediately. No explanation given. Amara was at school. She did not know yet. She did not know that reporters had been camped outside their building. She did not know that someone had spray-painted "Gold Digger" across their door. She didn't know that her father's boss at the garage had called him into the office that morning and told him not to come back. Too much attention. Bad for business. Eli had $217 in his bank account. He had no job, no apartment, and a 6-year-old daughter who depended on him for everything. He thought about Lissa's face in the window, the way she had looked at him like he was someone worth knowing. He thought about the text she had sent. "I can't do this." He understood. He did not blame her, but it still hurt like hell. He folded the eviction notice and stood. He had 3 days to find a new place to live. 3 days to figure out how to keep his daughter safe. He would do it. He always did. But for the first time in a long time, Elijah Hayes felt like he was drowning, and there was no one left to pull him out. Lissa had not left her room in 6 days. She had not eaten. She had not slept more than an hour at a time. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and wished she could disappear. Her father knocked twice a day. She did not answer. On the 7th day, he did not knock. He walked in and set a manila folder on the nightstand. "Read it," he said. Lissa did not move. "Lissa." His voice was different, softer, almost uncertain. "Please read it." She turned her head slowly. Clinton stood by the door, his hands in his pockets, his face unreadable. "What is it?" she asked, her voice raw from disuse. "The accident report, the full one, not the summary I gave you 3 years ago." Lissa sat up. Her heart began to pound. "Why now?" Clinton looked away. "Because I was wrong." She stared at him. He had never said those words before. "Read it," he said again, and left. Lissa reached for the folder with trembling hands. Inside were police reports, witness statements, photographs of the wreckage. She had seen some of this before, but not all of it, not the details. She read slowly, her eyes moving over the words, her breath catching in her throat. The other driver had run a red light. He had been drunk. He had T-boned their car at 50 miles per hour. Her stepmother had swerved to avoid a child in the crosswalk. She had done everything right. The child had lived. Her stepmother had not. And none of it was Lissa's fault. She read the witness statements. A woman who had been standing on the corner, a man who had been in the car behind them, they all said the same thing. The other driver was at fault. There was nothing anyone could have done. Lissa dropped the folder. Her hands were shaking so hard she could not hold it anymore. For 3 years, she had believed she was the reason her stepmother died. Her father had let her believe it. He had never corrected her. He had never shown her this report. She stood and walked to the door, throwing it open. Clinton was standing in the hallway, his back to her. "Why didn't you show me this before?" she demanded, her voice breaking. He turned. His face was pale. "Because I was angry. I was grieving, and I blamed you because it was easier than blaming a stranger. You let me think it was my fault. I know. For 3 years, I know." He stepped toward her. "I'm sorry. I should have told you the truth. I should have given you this a long time ago." Lissa felt tears streaming down her face. "I thought I killed her. I thought I deserved everything that happened to me." Clinton reached out like he wanted to touch her, then let his hand fall. "You didn't deserve any of it. You never did." She collapsed against the doorframe, sobbing. 3 years of guilt, of shame, of self-hatred poured out of her all at once. Clinton stood there, helpless, watching his daughter break apart. When she finally stopped crying, she looked up at him. "I need to see Eli." Clinton's jaw tightened. "I need to see him," she said again, her voice firm. "I don't care what you think. I don't care what the world thinks. He was kind to me when no one else was. And I cut him off because I was afraid, but I'm done being afraid. Clinton looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll take you to him. Eli was packing boxes when he heard the knock. Amara was at her grandmother's house for the weekend, the only place he could think to send her while he figured out where they were going to live. He had found a motel that would take them for a week, but after that, he had no plan. He opened the door and froze. Clinton Harrington stood in the hallway wearing a suit that probably cost more than Eli's car. Behind him, half hidden, was Lissa. Mr. Hayes, Clinton said. His voice was formal, controlled. May I come in? Eli stepped aside, too shocked to speak. Clinton walked into the apartment, looked around, then turned to face him. I owe you an apology, Clinton said. Eli blinked. What? I threatened you. I had you investigated. I destroyed your livelihood because I thought you were a threat to my daughter. Clinton's expression was tight. I was wrong. Lissa stepped forward. Her face was bare. No mask, no hoodie, just her scars and all. Eli, she said softly. He could not move. He could not breathe. She was here. She was real. I'm sorry, she continued, her voice shaking. I cut you off because my father threatened to take Amara from you. I thought if I stayed away, you'd be safe, but I was wrong too. Eli found his voice. You don't have to apologize. You were protecting my daughter. I was protecting myself. Lissa said, I was too afraid to fight for what I wanted, but I'm not afraid anymore. Clinton cleared his throat. I've spoken to your landlord. Your lease will be reinstated. I've also spoken to your employer. You'll have your job back by Monday if you want it. Eli stared at him. Why? Because my daughter wants to see you. And for the first time in 3 years, she wants something. Clinton's voice cracked slightly. I've spent 3 years trying to protect her by keeping her locked away, but I was wrong. She doesn't need protection. She needs a life. He turned to Lissa. I'll be in the car. Clinton walked out, closing the door behind him. Eli and Lissa stood alone in the small apartment, the space between them heavy with everything unsaid. I read the accident report, Lissa said. The full one. It wasn't my fault. The other driver ran a red light. My stepmother died saving a child's life, and I've spent 3 years hating myself for something I didn't do. Eli stepped closer. I'm glad you know the truth. I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for you. Her eyes were wet. You made me want to live again. You and Amara. You made me feel like I was still worth something. You are worth something, Eli said. You always were. She reached for his hand. He took it without hesitation. I don't know what happens next, she said. The world is going to judge us. People are going to say terrible things. My father's money is always going to be part of this, whether we want it to be or not. I don't care about your father's money, Eli said. I know, that's why I'm here. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. She buried her face in his chest and let herself be held. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, he admitted. But I think we can figure it out, together. She pulled back and looked up at him. Together. He kissed her. It was soft and tentative and full of hope. When they finally pulled apart, she was smiling. It was the first real smile she had worn in 3 years. The media storm did not stop. If anything, it got worse. But Lissa stopped hiding. She went out in public with Eli. She held his hand on the street. She ignored the cameras and the whispers and the cruel comments online. She started therapy again, real therapy, not the kind her father had arranged. She talked about the accident, about the guilt, about the years she had lost to fear. Slowly, she began to heal. Eli went back to work at the garage. His co-workers stared at first, but eventually they stopped. Life moved on. Amara was thrilled. She asked Lissa 1,000 questions every time she saw her. She wanted to know where Lissa lived, what she liked to eat, if she had ever been to Disneyland. Lissa answered every single one. Clinton kept his distance, but he did not interfere. He watched from the sidelines as his daughter rebuilt her life piece by piece. He had spent 3 years trying to control her, and it had nearly destroyed them both. Now he let her go. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. 1 year later, Lissa stood in a field of wildflowers on the edge of the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Eli stood beside her, his hand in hers. Amara ran ahead, chasing butterflies, her laughter carrying on the wind. "She wants to call you Mom," Eli said quietly. Lissa looked at him, her heart full. "What do you think?" "I think you've earned it." Amara ran back, breathless and grinning. "Miss Lissa, look." She held up a dandelion, its seeds ready to scatter. "Make a wish." Lissa knelt down, eye level with the little girl. "What should I wish for?" "Something good," Amara said seriously. "Something that makes you happy." Lissa looked at Eli, then back at Amara. "I already have it." Amara's face scrunched in confusion. "Then what are you going to wish for?" "That it lasts forever," Lissa said. She blew on the dandelion and the seeds scattered into the air, carried away by the breeze. Eli reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. It was plain, nothing fancy. But when he opened it, the ring inside caught the light. Lissa's breath caught. "I know we haven't been together that long," Eli said. "And I know people are going to say I'm doing this for the wrong reasons, but I don't care what they say. I love you. I love the way you make my daughter laugh. I love the way you fight, even when you're scared. I love you, scars and all." He got down on one knee. Amara bounced excitedly beside him. "Will you marry me?" Eli asked. Lissa looked at him, at the man who had held her hand in a coffee shop when everyone else turned away. The man who had seen her at her worst and stayed anyway. "Yes," she said, her voice steady and sure. "Yes, I will." He slid the ring onto her finger. It was simple silver with a small stone that sparkled in the fading light. It was not expensive. It was not flashy, but it was hers. Amara threw her arms around both of them. "Does this mean you're going to be my mom?" Lissa laughed, tears streaming down her face. "If you'll have me, yes," Amara squealed. "Yes, yes, yes." They stood there in the field, the three of them wrapped in each other's arms as the sun dipped below the horizon. Lissa's scars were visible in the golden light. She did not hide them anymore. They were part of her story. But they were not the whole story. She had spent 3 years believing she was broken, believing she was unworthy of love, believing the world would never accept her. But she had been wrong. The world did not need to accept her. She only needed to accept herself. And she had. They were not rich. They were not perfect. They were not the kind of family that appeared in magazines or lived in mansions, but they had chosen each other, and that was enough. As they walked back through the field, hand in hand, Lissa looked up at the sky. The stars were beginning to appear, bright and endless. She thought about the night of the accident, the fire, the pain, the darkness that had swallowed her whole. She thought about the girl she used to be, the one who cared about magazine covers and designer clothes and what other people thought. That girl was gone. She had burned away in the fire, but the woman who remained was stronger, braver, more real. Eli squeezed her hand and she squeezed back. Amara ran ahead, her silhouette dark against the twilight. "Come on, Mom," she called back. "Hurry up!" Lissa's heart swelled. She looked at Eli and he smiled. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. Ready." They ran after Amara, their laughter echoing across the field, their shadow stretching long behind them. And for the first time in 3 years, Lissa felt like she was